Han Li only wanted one thing: peace. In a city where every cultivator fights for the strongest spiritual land, he chose the weakest one. No competition, no enemies, no trouble. But in the spirit realm, even weakness attracts danger. A stronger cultivator stepped forward demanding his land and his life. They thought Han Li would retreat. They thought he was just another newly ascended weakling. But what they didn't know was this: Han Li never chose that land to hide. He chose it because he didn't need spiritual chi to win. I really love making these videos, but I need your support to keep going. Please like, share, and subscribe so I don't have to give up on this dream. When Han Li returned inside, he picked up the jade slip, pressed it to his forehead, and immediately immersed his spiritual sense within it. A moment later, his expression shifted. As his spiritual sense swept through the contents, his face gradually changed. Deep Heaven City is actually this vast. It even seems larger than the capital cities of the 3 human regions. He continued to rub the jade slip thoughtfully for a short while before casually stepping out of the room. Regardless, he first made his way toward the Jade Fault Pavilion to arrange for his cave residence. Based on Zhao Wugai's words, there should be something unusual about it. This stirred a trace of his interest. After firmly committing the location of the Jade Fault Pavilion to memory, his body turned into a streak of azure light as he departed the pavilion. As he passed by more than a dozen massive pagodas nearby, Han Li discreetly observed the cultivators he encountered along the way. He noticed that some cultivators wore various types of armor, though these were mostly seen near the enormous structures. Those farther away were dressed in ordinary attire, typical of cultivators in the spirit realm. It was unclear whether they had removed their armor or were simply not affiliated with the city. However, one point was certain: anyone entering the massive pagodas was generally required to wear armor. Furthermore, Han Li observed that body refiners clad in yellow and white armor occupied the lower floors of these pagodas. The yellow-armored body refiners possessed mid-grade cultivation, while the white-armored ones had reached high-grade cultivation. Their numbers far exceeded those of cultivators wearing black and azure armor. From this, Han Li formed a clearer understanding. It seemed that the military strength of Deep Heaven City was concentrated within the countless soldiers stationed in these massive pagodas. The different armor colors, yellow, white, black, azure, and gold, clearly represented distinct levels of combat capability. After briefly observing the pagodas and the soldiers, Han Li shifted his attention back to his objective. After flying for roughly an hour, he finally saw an exceptionally tall city wall in the distance. The light surrounding his body dimmed, and he descended toward an ordinary-looking 3-story building below. Though the structure appeared small and unremarkable, a steady stream of cultivators moved in and out of it. Han Li paused for a moment, examining both the building and the streaks of light from flying cultivators before calmly approaching the entrance. Above the gate, a signboard displayed the words Jade Fault Pavilion in bold, elegant calligraphy. Han Li narrowed his eyes and studied the sign for a long moment before stepping inside. The first floor contained a spacious hall over 100 meters wide. Several dozen cultivators stood within, all focused on a massive screen emitting an azure glow at the far end. The screen displayed a map approximately 6 meters tall and more than 30 meters wide. Silver points of light flickered across its surface, occasionally accompanied by numerical values. Standing before it was a middle-aged man in azure robes wearing a faint smile. Han Li swept his spiritual sense across the hall and found that all the cultivators present were at the nascent soul stage. The man in azure robes, however, was a deity transformation cultivator. At that moment, a thin elderly man stepped forward, bowed respectfully, and handed over a black glowing iron plate along with a storage bracelet. The middle-aged man glanced at both items, nodded slightly, and with a casual motion, made the storage bracelet disappear. He then returned the iron plate to the old man. The old man's expression trembled with excitement. Taking the plate, he approached the massive map and waved it lightly. A black line of light emerged from the plate and inscribed the number 2 onto one of the silver points. The point flickered briefly, and the number changed to 3. After completing this, the old man promptly withdrew. Within the time it took to drink a cup of tea, more than a dozen individuals stepped forward to present either items or spirit stones to the azure-robed man. Most were approved and received a corresponding mark on the map, though a few were rejected with a shake of the head and left with disappointed expressions. Hanley soon realized that the map represented the various spirit veins within Deep Heaven City. The deeper the azure glow in a region and the higher the number displayed, the more contested that area was. In some green regions of the map, he even saw locations marked with the number 12. Upon seeing this, Han Li stroked his chin and recalled Zhao Wugi's explanation. It appeared that obtaining a suitable cave residence required competing with others. At that moment, a clear voice sounded behind him. "Senior, are you searching for a suitable spirit land to establish your cave residence?" Han Li slowly turned his expression calm. Before him stood a slender and beautiful woman, respectfully positioned to one side. Her cultivation was only at the foundation establishment stage, which was expected given her maid attire. "That's correct. However, I am still searching for an appropriate location. I am not particularly satisfied with the spirit mountains here," Han Li replied evenly. "Senior must be a deity transformation cultivator. The first floor is only for black armored guards. You should proceed to the second floor," the woman said with a gentle smile. "How did you determine that I am at the deity transformation stage? With your cultivation, you should not be able to discern that." A faint chill flickered in Han Li's eyes. "There is no need for concern, senior." The woman raised her hand and revealed a palm-sized plate inscribed with flashing silver runes. "Although this junior's cultivation is low, I possess a spirit pressure plate. Unless a senior deliberately conceals their aura, I can detect their cultivation level." Han Li looked at the plate and felt a slight headache. Whether the human elders had obtained ancient records on artifact refinement or had advanced their understanding to such a level, this development clearly challenged his prior assumptions. It seemed he would need to exercise greater caution. If he were caught off guard at a critical moment, it could lead to complications. Naturally, none of these thoughts appeared on his face. He merely nodded and allowed the woman to guide him upstairs. The second floor contained far fewer people, but was noticeably more refined in its decoration. Although multiple areas were displayed on the screen, only 5 individuals sat calmly studying the map in detail. To the side of the screen sat a large man in purple robes, leaning back lazily. Han Li swept his spiritual sense across the man, and his expression subtly changed. The man was an early-stage spatial tempering cultivator. As for the others examining the map, they were all deity transformation cultivators like himself. Each of them was accompanied by a maid dressed in similar attire, each one exceptionally beautiful and at the foundation establishment stage. Han Li took a slow breath, then offered a respectful salute toward the purple-robed man before following the maid to an empty seat. Like the others, the maid stood quietly behind him. Han Li glanced at the map and noticed that the others were focused on the green regions. These appeared to represent the mountain ranges within Deep Heaven City. Compared to the first floor, there were far fewer silver numbers here. Most locations were marked with 1 or 2, with only a few reaching 4, and even those were limited to a single spot. After a brief moment of thought, Han Li gestured to the maid behind him. "I am not familiar with the spirit lands in this area. Can you provide an explanation?" "Yes, senior," the maid replied. "This map shows the 3 mountain ranges within the city. The central range, the Jade Rapid Mountains, possesses the most abundant spiritual chi. Most deity transformation seniors reside there, and many rare spirit medicines grow within it. Recently, 2 deity transformation seniors failed to survive their tribulations, and another reached the end of his lifespan. According to the rules, their cave residences have been made available, which has led to intense competition." She continued, "The second area is the Heavenly Sound Mountains. Many deity transformation cultivators also reside there, though the spiritual chi is slightly inferior to that of the Jade Rapid Mountains. As for the Jade Sound Mountain, it was originally designated for nascent soul cultivators. It has only recently been opened to deity transformation seniors, but it may not be particularly suitable. However, the number of cave residences there is small. If Senior desires a large and exclusive territory, it could be a suitable option. So that is the situation. Hanli nodded slowly and turned his attention back to the map. The maid tactfully stepped back, though she could not help but glance at him once more. Hanli appeared no older than his 20s, yet he had already reached the deity transformation stage. Although she had seen many such cultivators while working at the Jade Fault Pavilion, encountering one so young still stirred her curiosity. At that moment, a richly dressed, corpulent man stepped forward confidently. He raised an embroidered box along with an azure jade pendant and respectfully presented them to the purple-robed man. This junior has recently obtained a stalk of silver immortal grass with 4,000 years of maturity. May Senior determine whether I am qualified to select a spirit land. Even at 4,000 years, it is still somewhat insufficient. Let me examine it, the purple-robed man replied casually as he accepted the items. When he opened the box, a radiant silver light shone forth, accompanied by a refreshing medicinal fragrance. Even with his extensive knowledge of spirit medicines, Han Li could not help but acknowledge its exceptional quality. The purple-robed man narrowed his eyes and inspected the plant for a while before speaking with slight reluctance. 4,000 years. It seems to fall short by a few hundred years, but I will make an exception. It qualifies. The fat man let out a quiet sigh of relief and smiled as he thanked the purple-robed man. He then raised his jade pendant and directed it toward a speck of light marked with the number 4. Under the pendant's azure glow, the number blurred and shifted into a 5. This corresponded to a location within the Jade Rapid Mountains, the region with the most concentrated spiritual qi. When the other seated cultivators witnessed this, their expressions changed noticeably. Several of them had been considering similar choices, but now they were forced to reconsider their plans. After all, the fat man was a late-stage deity transformation cultivator. His cultivation level alone carried weight, and even his decisions exerted pressure on the others. Having made his selection, the fat man returned to his seat, intending to observe what choices the others would make. Influenced by his decision, the remaining cultivators soon rose one after another. 2 of them selected areas within Heavenly Sound Mountain, one unoccupied, the other already inhabited. After making their choices, they immediately departed. The cultivators who remained all frowned, appearing unable to decide. At that moment, Han Li suddenly stood up and walked toward the purple-robed man. This caused slight surprise among the others. Han Li had only just arrived, yet he had already reached a decision so quickly. He stroked his storage bracelet and retrieved a white jade box, holding it in his hand. With a faint smile, he presented it together with his jade pendant to the large purple-robed man. The purple-robed man did not accept the jade box immediately. Instead, he glanced at Han Li and said, "I heard that a newly ascended cultivator recently arrived in the city. Are you the one surnamed Han? Senior is well informed." "That is indeed me." Han Li's heart trembled slightly, but his expression remained calm. "In that case, this is your first time selecting a cave residence. You are exempt from payment and may choose a spirit land freely." "Many thanks, Senior." Han Li's expression relaxed as he withdrew the jade box with a smile. When the surrounding cultivators heard that Han Li was newly ascended, they looked at him with unusual expressions. Clearly, newly ascended cultivators held a special status within the city. The purple-robed man briefly inspected Han Li's pendant before returning it with a nod. Without hesitation, Han Li raised the pendant and directed it toward an unoccupied region. The azure light swept across it, marking the area with the number 1. An immediate commotion arose when the others saw his choice. The location Han Li selected was within the Jade Rapid Mountains, but it was the area with the weakest spiritual qi. While it was not unusual for a deity transformation cultivator to choose that mountain range, there were other unclaimed areas within it. Yet Han Li had deliberately selected the most inconspicuous region, one with the lowest concentration of spiritual qi. This left the others puzzled. The only advantage of that spirit land was its size. To compensate for the lack of spiritual qi, The region covered an expansive area spanning thousands of kilometers, several times larger than the other spirit lands in the same range. However, everyone understood that the value of a spirit land depended on its spiritual chi. Regardless of how vast the area was, the quality of spirit, herbs, and mineral resources would inevitably be poor. For a cultivator, this was even more disadvantageous. The purple-robed man looked at Han Li in surprise for a long moment before frowning. "You have truly chosen this as your cave residence. You should understand that this selection cannot be changed for 100 years. Han Li replied calmly, "I have only just arrived in the spirit realm. For now, I only require a place to stay. I do not wish to compete with other fellow Taoists for territory. Although this area is lacking, it is unoccupied." The purple-robed man gave him an odd look, then waved his hand. In his usual indifferent tone, he said, "If that is your intention, then so be it. Once it is marked, no one else will be able to alter it." Han Li bowed without hesitation and returned to his seat, intending to remain for a while longer. Soon after, another cultivator stood and selected the same region as the purple-robed man had chosen. At that moment, the sound of footsteps echoed as someone entered the second floor, without being accompanied by a maid. When the cultivators saw this newcomer, all of their expressions shifted. The fat man, however, revealed a bright look and called out, "So it is fellow Taoist Weng. I did not expect you to be interested in competing for spirit lands." The newcomer was a blue-robed man wearing a headband. His eyebrows were sharp and slanted, giving him a somewhat fierce appearance. He glanced at the fat man and smiled. "Hehe, if Brother Jin has come to change his cave residence, then I may do the same." Although this man was only at the mid-stage of deity transformation, he spoke to the late-stage fat man with ease. This caused Han Li's thoughts to stir, and he examined the blue-robed man more carefully. At this level, even a small difference in cultivation stage represented a significant gap in strength. Of course, individuals like Han Li, who possessed spirit treasures, refined heavenly flames through devouring spirits, and cultivated extraordinary techniques such as the divine essence-fused light, were exceptions. Since the blue-robed man spoke so casually to a late-stage cultivator, he was likely of a similar caliber. Little brother Weng must be joking. You already possess a top-grade spirit land. What would you exchange it for? The fat man stroked his chin, confusion evident in his tone. Hey, I have recently begun cultivating a secret technique that does not require much spiritual chi. Instead, I need a vast area. Otherwise, it will be difficult to proceed. I only intend to exchange it temporarily, the blue-robed man replied. I see, the fat man said, though it was unclear whether he truly believed him. Hearing this exchange, Han Li frowned slightly. The blue-robed man then stepped forward and bowed toward the purple-robed man. I pay my respects to Marshal Uncle Jiao. My master sends his regards. With that old eccentric's temperament, why would he bother with such courtesy? The purple-robed man replied with a cold laugh. Still, your master has already evaded 6 major tribulations. I fear he will not escape the 7th. The blue-robed man's expression stiffened with embarrassment, but he quickly responded. My master has been in seclusion for 200 years. He is preparing to refine a spirit treasure capable of withstanding the next calamity. A spirit treasure. It seems your master's fortune is not lacking. Last time his treasures were destroyed while resisting the tribulation, yet he has managed to gather materials again. In that case, he may indeed have a chance. Enough of this. I am on duty. Make your selection, the purple-robed man said flatly. As you command. The blue-robed man swept his gaze across the map. When he saw several marked areas, his expression darkened. Someone actually chose such a remote location within the Jade Rapid Mountains. Not daring to question the purple-robed man, he turned to the fat man and pointed at a specific area. Brother Jin, you have been here for some time. Do you know who selected that place? When the fat man saw the location, his expression turned strange, and he instinctively glanced toward Han Li. The blue-robed man immediately understood and turned to examine Han Li carefully. Upon seeing that Han Li was only at the early stage, his expression became arrogant. He said coldly, So you are the one who chose that spirit land? After a brief pause, Han Li replied, and you intend to take it? The blue-robed man snorted. My secret technique can only be cultivated in a suitable environment. If you are sensible, you will relinquish your claim. Otherwise, do not blame me for showing no mercy when we fight. His threat was unmistakable. Han Li remained silent. He had deliberately chosen an area with weak spiritual qi to avoid conflict. His sole intention was to cultivate in peace without provoking disputes or making enemies. He had not expected that this very choice would attract trouble instead. To him, the situation was somewhat ironic. A faint blue light flickered within his eyes as he briefly observed the others. The purple-robed man still sat lazily, showing no interest in intervening. As for the other cultivators, they watched with clear amusement. Senior, if I relinquish my choice, will I be allowed to select another area? Han Li asked calmly. Number. The number of spirit lands is limited. Each person has only one opportunity to contend for one. If you lose, you will have to wait another 100 years to compete again. The purple-robed man replied expressionlessly. Hearing this, Han Li sighed inwardly. Delaying the maturation of his spirit herbs and the refinement of spirit pills by 100 years was unacceptable to him. At the side, the blue-robed man sneered. Even if you wait 100 years, you will still have another chance. But if you refuse to listen to me… Haha. Han Li raised an eyebrow slightly and smiled. I will not agree to your request. In my view, it would be better for you to find another place to cultivate. I have no intention of injuring you. However, if I were to make a mistake… His tone remained calm, but the meaning behind his words was unmistakable. The surrounding cultivators were momentarily stunned. Han Li was only at the early deity transformation stage, and he had deliberately concealed his true capabilities the entire time. As a result, his words caught everyone off guard. Even the purple-robed man, who normally showed no emotion, turned to look at Han Li with a trace of surprise. A cold glint flashed through the sharp-browed man's eyes. You have courage. It has been several hundred years since someone with a lower cultivation base dared to speak to me in such a manner. In that case, there will be no need to hold back in the battle for the spirit land in 3 days, he said in a low, threatening voice. I will accept whatever methods you choose to use at that time. I will take my leave now. Han Li replied calmly. He gave a slight bow toward the purple-robed man, then turned and departed from the second floor without hesitation. The sharp-browed man watched his retreating figure, his expression dark. Shortly thereafter, the fat man and the sharp-browed man appeared high in the air above the heavenly jade pavilion. They were conversing through voice transmission. Brother Xian, what do you intend to use that spirit land for? You could not say earlier, but now there is no need for secrecy. The fat man asked with a gentle smile. I was not lying before. I need it to cultivate a secret technique that requires changing cave abodes. Otherwise, why would I deliberately seek out a place with such thin spiritual qi? The sharp-browed man replied with a faint sigh. The fat man chuckled, clearly unconvinced. Seeing this, the sharp-browed man showed a resigned expression, as if there was nothing more he could say. Very well. Regardless of your purpose, there must be reasons you prefer not to reveal it. Tell me, do you truly intend to go all out against that Han boy? The fat man asked, shifting the topic. Why do you ask? Could it be that you have some connection with him? Fellow Taoist Jin. The sharp-browed man replied, his tone showing displeasure. How could I have any ties with him? I only wanted to remind you that he is a cultivator who recently ascended to Deep Heaven City. The fat man said in a cautionary tone. A recently ascended cultivator? What of it? One ascended cultivator arrives every 2 or 3 years. Do you think I would lose to someone at the early deity transformation stage, Brother Jin? Now I understand why he was so arrogant. He must have dominated his lower realm and brought that same attitude here to the spirit realm. The sharp-browed man said with a cold chuckle. Ha ha ha, his cultivation base is indeed unremarkable. With your strength, even I would not claim confidence in defeating you. No matter how capable an early deity transformation cultivator may be, He cannot match you. However, the ascended cultivators in the city tend to support one another. You should simply teach him a lesson and avoid killing him. Otherwise, even with Senior Ming backing you, things could become troublesome if those people learn that you killed one of them, the fat man advised sincerely. That man has been too arrogant. I will naturally teach him a lesson. As for whether I will take his life, that will depend on how the battle unfolds, the sharp-browed man said, a cold light flickering in his eyes. In that case, I have nothing further to say. In 3 days, I must also face 4 opponents. I am not certain I can win the fat man, said a trace of concern appearing on his face. You are too modest, Brother Jin. I heard that you recently acquired a primordial treasure with extraordinary abilities comparable to a spirit treasure, the sharp-browed man said with a faint smile. The fat man's expression shifted slightly before he quickly regained composure. I did not expect you to hear of that so quickly, Brother Wang. It is true that I obtained a rather powerful treasure, but to compare it to a spirit treasure is an exaggeration. It merely has some defensive properties, he replied, waving his hand. Is that so? The man surnamed Wang said with a faint smile. The two continued their conversation for a while, each harboring hidden intentions. In the end, the fat man departed as a streak of red light. Wang watched him leave, his expression darkening as he let out a cold snort. Humph. He is trying to provoke me into forming enmity with those ascended cultivators. A careful scheme. You are already under suspicion. You should act more cautiously. He himself is not a concern, but his grandfather is someone even I would prefer not to confront. Another voice suddenly sounded above him. A flash of spiritual light appeared, revealing a jade-green worm about a foot long. Wang immediately bowed respectfully. Rest assured, Master. Once I obtain the spirit land, I will seal it completely. Unless that fat man has concrete evidence, he will not be able to act. I trust your ability. This matter is of great importance. If I were not at a critical stage in refining my spirit treasure, I would not have sent only an avatar. Do not disappoint me, the worm said. I will not fail you, Master Wang replied. However, a trace of hesitation appeared on his face. But Master, are we certain the information is correct? The spiritual chi there is extremely sparse. It does not seem like a place where that person would have perished. We are not certain. However, given that individual's identity, even the slightest possibility is worth pursuing. If the information is true, we will obtain that person's treasures and cultivation arts. In that case, not only will I overcome my upcoming tribulation, but you may also reach the spatial tempering stage. Therefore, you must not lose in 3 days. If your opponent proves troublesome, do not hesitate, kill him. The consequences may be inconvenient, but they are insignificant compared to what we stand to gain, the worm said, its tone turning cold. Wang felt a chill in his heart, but he immediately replied, I understand, Master. All ascended cultivators possess unusual methods. Do not become complacent. Although this man is only at the early deity transformation stage, I will lend you my 1,000-soul bell. You will have 3 days to refine it, which should be sufficient for temporary use. With it, victory will be assured. The worm opened its mouth, expelling a mass of yin qi. Within it was a black bell about an inch in size, its surface covered in countless runes. Wang was overjoyed. He expressed his gratitude and swept his sleeve, releasing a burst of blue light to receive the bell. After giving a few more instructions, the worm vanished into his sleeve. Only then did Wang turn and depart as a streak of blue light. Han Lai remained completely unaware of these events, and he could not have known that someone had already decided to kill him. After leaving the Heavenly Jade Pavilion, he did not immediately return to the Flying Spirit Palace. Instead, he flew for more than half a day, following the map's markings, before stopping in mid-air. He looked down at the distant city, his brows slightly furrowed in thought. Strictly speaking, this place was better described as the state of Tianyuan, rather than Deep Heaven City. The region under its control was comparable to a small human nation. However, Deep Heaven City itself was not particularly vast. It covered only tens of thousands of square kilometers and was enclosed by massive city gates. The city had a trapezoidal shape with gates at the front and rear. while the other two sides were concealed within dense mist formed by powerful formations. Even beings at the true spirit level would find it difficult to force their way through. The wall facing the primordial world was the shortest, less than 100 kilometers long, yet the watchtowers along it extended tens of thousands of feet into the sky, engraved with runes that inspired both awe and caution. Outside this wall, numerous human and demon patrols guarded the area day and night, while various restriction formations remained constantly active. Within the walls, over 1 million human and demon soldiers were permanently stationed. Such defenses ensured that Deep Heaven City had never been breached by foreign races since its founding. In contrast, the wall on the opposite side was far less imposing. It extended over 500 kilometers, and many humans and demons passed through it to enter or leave the 3 regions and 7 territories. Most sought adventure in the primordial world, while others came to trade within the city. As a result, the city remained lively and active. Beyond the city lay vast mountain ranges and scattered mortal settlements, but no other cultivator cities existed. These settlements supplied essential resources to Deep Heaven City and also provided a steady stream of low-grade cultivators and body refinement warriors. In the territories assigned to the demon race, countless beasts and low-grade demon beasts served as their source of replenishment. Although humans and demons were forced to cooperate in guarding Deep Heaven City, the two races did not truly trust one another. To prevent conflict, the city was divided in half by a massive light barrier, with each race governing one side. Outside the city, an unclaimed buffer zone separated their respective territories. The only place where both races coexisted was the Elder Tower at the city's center. This tower was several times thicker than the others and housed the most powerful beings in the city. Among them were more than a dozen body integration stage elders from both races responsible for making major decisions. As a result, the tower was regarded with a sense of mystery by all who lived in the city. Han Li was positioned more than 10 kilometers away from the Elder Tower. He gazed at the massive azure stone structure that rose straight into the clouds, and a thoughtful glint flickered in his eyes. From what he knew, at least one body integration stage elder from both the human and demon races was always stationed within that tower. That fact alone made him feel somewhat pressured. In the human world, deity transformation cultivators were exceedingly rare and difficult to encounter. Yet here in Deep Heaven City, he stood so close to even body integration cultivators, and in the future, he might even be able to seek guidance from them. It seemed that before he cleansed himself of the aura of an alternate realm, this was an ideal place to remain. Hovering in mid-air, Han Li wore a contemplative expression. Naturally, his thoughts were not on his upcoming battle with the man surnamed Weng. He had already faced spatial tempering cultivators before, so this opponent did not concern him. After observing the city for a while longer, Han Li transformed into a streak of azure light and flew back toward the Flying Spirit Palace. Upon returning to his residence, he immediately deactivated the restriction. Only after confirming that everything was in order did he enter the secret chamber and sit down cross-legged. Although he was fairly confident of victory in the upcoming battle, he had no intention of neglecting preparations. However, before that, there was a small matter he needed to address. With a flick of his sleeve, a small silver bracelet appeared in his hand. It was exquisitely crafted, yet extremely light, suggesting that it was hollow. This was a spirit beast bracelet, similar in function to the storage bracelets of the spirit realm. Its interior was divided into several compartments, allowing different spirit insects and spirit beasts to be stored simultaneously. After his journey to the setting sun tomb, Han Li had placed all of his spirit beasts into this bracelet, including the gold-devouring beetles and the weeping soul beast. As a result, his spirit beast pouch had become unnecessary. He brushed his hand over the bracelet, and a fist-sized ball of yellow light emerged. The light rapidly expanded, transforming into a small beast, about a foot long, tightly bound by azure ropes. It was the mutated leopard Kirin beast captured in the setting sun tomb by the spirit tribe. From Shi Yan's memories, Han Li had learned that although the creature resembled an ordinary leopard, It possessed a trace of Kirin blood. Furthermore, as a mutated leopard Kirin beast, it already had nascent soul stage power, despite not yet reaching maturity. After recovering his magic power, Han Li had considered taming it. However, the beast was extremely feral and possessed a certain level of intelligence. It had shown a clear preference for death over submission. Thus, he had confined it within the spirit beast pouch, intending to wear down its resistance over time. After decades of captivity, the beast had finally reached its limit. A few days earlier, it had sent him a signal from within the bracelet, indicating its willingness to submit. At the time, Han Li had been occupied with preparing for his tribulation and other matters, leaving him no opportunity to deal with it. Now he had 3 days to tame this beast. As soon as the creature appeared, it began to whimper, looking at Han Li with pleading green eyes. Combined with its small feline form, it appeared rather harmless. "I will place a restriction on you," Han Li said calmly. "If you accept it, I will release your bindings and grant you some benefits. Otherwise, you will remain imprisoned for another century." The beast was not highly intelligent, but it clearly understood his meaning. At the thought of another 100 years of captivity, its body trembled and it quickly nodded. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's face as he produced over a dozen thin silver needles. With a flick of his hand, the needles vanished into the beast's body in an instant. Immediately afterward, Han Li took out a bright red talisman. He expelled a mouthful of blood essence and infused it into the talisman, which he then waved lightly. The talisman transformed into a cloud of blood mist that lingered without dispersing. Han Li began chanting before tapping the top of his head. Azure light flashed, and a nascent soul several inches tall emerged, standing atop a miniature cauldron. The nascent soul opened its mouth and released a ball of green light. As soon as the green light appeared, the blood mist surged toward it, merging into a combined sphere of green and red light. The nascent soul formed a series of hand seals, sending incantation seals into the sphere. The sphere began to churn violently, soon transforming into a ghostly head the size of a fist, its expression sinister. At the nascent soul's command, the ghostly head shot forward and burrowed into the beast's head. The beast let out a sharp cry before collapsing unconscious, its eyes rolling back. At the same time, green and red light flickered erratically across its body. A satisfied expression appeared on Han Li's face. He made a grasping motion, and the azure ropes binding the beast shattered into fragments before vanishing. Ignoring the beast, Han Li closed his eyes and entered meditation. He remained in seclusion for the next 3 days. On the morning of the 4th day, a streak of light penetrated the restriction outside his chamber and flew toward the door. However, upon reaching the door, it was repelled by a layer of white light. After several failed attempts, it emitted a ringing sound. At that moment, azure light flashed and a figure appeared out of thin air, catching the streak of light. It was Han Li, who had just emerged from seclusion. A small leopard-like beast now sat calmly on his shoulder. He examined the ball of light in his hand with his spiritual sense. It was a voice transmission talisman from the Heavenly Jade Pavilion regarding the Spirit Land battle. "The vast martial hall," Han Li murmured. He rubbed his hands together and the talisman vanished. Without hesitation, he walked toward the door. 4 hours later, Han Li hovered in mid-air above a large plaza enclosed within a massive white light barrier. Outside the barrier stood a burly man clad in golden armor, a scar crossing his face, his expression cold. Time passed slowly. Han Li remained calm and patient, but the armored man occasionally glanced at the 7 blazing suns overhead, as if measuring the passage of time. Suddenly, spiritual light flickered in the distance. A streak of blue light shot forward and arrived beside the barrier in an instant, revealing a cultivator. "Senior, please forgive me. I was refining a treasure and arrived late. I hope I am not too late," the man said with a respectful bow and a flattering smile. It was the man surnamed Wang. "Humph. Any later and you would have been disqualified. You made it just in time." "Enter," the armored man replied coldly. He formed a hand seal and struck the barrier. Spiritual light surged and a passage about 10 feet wide opened. "Thank you, Senior." The man quickly entered as a streak of blue light. When his gaze fell on Han Li, a sinister smile spread across his face. "So you really came. It seems you have some courage, daring to accept my challenge at the early deity transformation stage." Han Li simply smiled faintly, offering no reply. The man's anger immediately flared, and his killing intent intensified. "Listen carefully," the armored cultivator said. "There are no rules within this barrier. As long as you remain inside, anything is permitted. Unless one side verbally concedes, I will not intervene. If you feel unprepared, surrender early. Fatalities are rare, but severe injuries are common. If there are no objections, the battle will begin." Han Li and his opponent faced each other silently. "Begin," the armored man declared. Both moved at the same instant. Facing an opponent respected even by late deity transformation cultivators, Han Li showed no trace of carelessness. He flicked his sleeve, releasing 72 tiny swords, each about an inch long. They shimmered with golden light and transformed into lotus flowers that revolved around him. At the same time, he expelled a miniature cauldron. It expanded rapidly to 10 feet in size amid radiant spiritual light. It was the Heaven Void Cauldron. Meanwhile, the sharp-browed man formed a hand seal. Countless specks of blue light, each no larger than a grain of rice, emerged from his body, surrounding him densely. He then made a grasping motion. A burst of silver light appeared, forming a small silver wheel in his hand. The wheel was ancient in appearance, covered in intricate runes, clearly an extraordinary treasure. He tossed it into the air. It transformed into a sphere of silver light and rapidly expanded under a series of incantations. In moments, it became a massive sphere, 30 to 40 feet wide, hovering above him like a silver sun. Only then did he look toward Han Li, and his expression stiffened. The 72 flying swords were not particularly alarming, but the massive azure cauldron before Han Li caused his heart to jolt with shock. Even though the true grade and function of those treasures could not be judged from appearance alone, it was well known that cauldrons, lamps, and mirrors often possessed unusual abilities that were extremely difficult to defend against. Among them, the Heaven Void Cauldron was releasing spiritual pressure far exceeding that of ordinary treasures. Han Li's opponent immediately grew cautious. He could already sense that this battle would not be easy. With that thought, he chose not to hesitate. He launched the first attack at once, intending to seize the initiative. At the same time, he formed a hand seal. The specks of blue light surrounding his body withdrew and condensed into grains of shimmering blue sand that rose into the sky. These grains multiplied at an astonishing rate, filling the heavens in the blink of an eye. Simultaneously, the massive silver wheel vanished into the sand cloud. A sharp cry rang out as the cloud of sand surged downward toward Han Li, producing a thunderous noise as countless grains collided and scraped against one another. Han Li narrowed his eyes but did not act immediately. The golden lotus flowers revolving around him rose upward to intercept the attack. As they moved, countless rays of light radiated from them, making them appear no less formidable than the incoming sand cloud. The moment the sand collided with the lotus flowers, each flower expanded rapidly to around 10 feet in size, spinning at high speed in the air. Their petals resembled sharp blades, tearing through the sand cloud with a series of loud explosions. The 72 golden lotus flowers halted the advancing sandstorm completely. A trace of surprise flashed across his opponent's face. He let out a cold chuckle and formed another incantation seal. Silver light suddenly flickered within the sand cloud. The massive silver wheel reappeared and crashed down, violently striking one of the lotus flowers. A sinister smile emerged on the man's face. This metal severing wheel had been refined from dark gold sand, a rare material from the primordial world. Its sharpness was unmatched, and its destructive power far exceeded that of ordinary flying swords or sabers. Since refining it, he had used it to destroy countless enemy treasures. Though those golden lotus swords appeared powerful, they should not be able to withstand the silver wheel. A rapid series of metallic clangs echoed as brilliant gold and silver light intertwined. To his surprise, the two treasures seemed evenly matched. His expression shifted slightly. Suddenly the golden lotus flower spread its petals and enveloped the entire silver wheel. A pained screech came from within before the wheel shattered into countless fragments and vanished into the lotus flower. Before the man could recover, Han Li pointed at the cauldron hovering before him. Its lid flew open on its own, and countless strands of azure light surged out. These strands passed through the lotus flowers, latched onto clusters of blue sand, and dragged them into the cauldron. Han Li's actions were swift and precise. By the time his opponent regained his senses, part of the blue sand had already been taken, and his connection to it was completely severed. "Spirit treasures," the man exclaimed. Both the blue sand and the metal severing wheel had been personally refined by him. Only spirit treasures could forcibly take them away. Now that they were lost, over a century of effort had been wasted. His expression turned grim. He opened his mouth and expelled a fist-sized ball of blood essence. He dipped a finger into it and used it to draw a crimson rune in the air, then struck it with his palm. The rune vanished instantly. In the next moment, it reappeared less than 10 feet from Han Li, transforming into a massive azure ghostly head with sharp horns that lunged forward. It was clearly an attempt to force Han Li to stop collecting the treasures. Han Li was forming hand seals as the heaven void cauldron absorbed the sand. When the ghostly head rushed toward him, he remained calm. He opened his mouth and a streak of golden lightning shot out, striking the head directly and dispersing it into azure smoke. Even an avatar of an elder devil would not dare face the divine devil-bane lightning directly. This attack had no chance of success. His opponent hesitated, then seemed to realize something. His expression darkened further. By now, half of the blue sand had already been taken by the cauldron. He let out a cold snort and formed a strange hand seal. Faint chanting sounds like Buddhist scripture echoed as he pointed forward. The blue sand locked in battle with the lotus flowers, and azure light suddenly froze. Immediately afterward, brilliant light erupted as the grains expanded rapidly. In an instant, the rice-sized particles became head-sized translucent blue stones glowing brightly. These heavy stones crashed down, slowing the rotation of the golden lotus flowers. Even the azure light from the cauldron could no longer draw them in. Han Li paused slightly and glanced at his opponent. The man's entire body was now radiating intense spiritual light. His hair fluttered wildly, and white light flickered from his orifices. It was clear he was burning his essence. Han Li's expression grew serious. He placed a hand on his head, and murky grey light surged outward. The heavy blue stones instantly became nearly weightless and reverted to sand. The grey light spread quickly, capturing all the sand in the air. This development shocked not only his opponent, but even the previously indifferent armored cultivator outside the barrier showed a trace of surprise. Han Li's divine essence-fused light had drawn his attention. "What kind of ability is this? How can it take my blue crystal sand?" the man demanded. "Do you think I would tell you?" Han Li replied calmly. In his view, the man's confidence came only from superior cultivation. Moreover, the man seemed to have a spatial tempering stage master. Han Li chose caution and had no intention of killing him yet. Otherwise, he would have already launched a continuous assault. This restraint also reflected his confidence. With the divine essence-fused light aureate sword formation and spirit devouring heavenly flames, he was not afraid even of a late deity transformation cultivator. The man hesitated briefly. Han Li's strength exceeded expectations, and defeat was unacceptable. He made his decision and flipped both hands. A palm-sized copper badge appeared in one hand, shrouded in white mist. In the other, a silver talisman filled with engraved runes. Han Li's pupils contracted. He immediately activated his sword arts. The golden lotus flowers converged into a single massive lotus over 100 feet wide and surged toward the man. Meanwhile, the grey light formed a barrier around Han Li. At that moment, the copper badge rose into the air. White light burst from it, and a projection expanded rapidly. A half-naked giant about 20 feet tall appeared. Its body resembled translucent green jade, and its eyes shimmered with spiritual light. It was a humanoid puppet. The silver talisman exploded into mist and formed a giant black wolf with green eyes staring coldly at Han Li. Still unsatisfied, the man inhaled deeply. His face turned crimson. He placed a hand on his head, and a blue nascent soul emerged holding a small black bell. That's the thousand-soul bell. Has eccentric Ming lost his mind? How could he lend such a treasure? The armored cultivator said, his expression darkening. Senior, I merely borrowed it. I haven't broken any rules, correct? The nascent soul replied with a childish voice. Humph, no. But this treasure is extremely powerful. Even with secret techniques, you can barely use it. You will suffer severe backlash. Is it worth it for a piece of spirit land? The cultivator asked coldly. I have already considered that, the nascent soul replied. The massive lotus was nearly upon him. He immediately threw the black bell. At the same time, the green puppet charged toward Han Li, growing larger with each step. By the time it reached the midpoint, it had more than doubled in size. The black wolf swayed slightly, then vanished into black mist. As soon as the black bell was hurled into the air, it released a series of crisp, resonant chimes. Han Li immediately felt as if a massive explosion had erupted within his spiritual sense. His body convulsed violently, as though struck by lightning, and he nearly fell from the sky. Startled by this sudden change, Han Li's great development technique activated on its own, sending a stream of cool clarity through his mind. His face turned pale, but his body soon regained stability. That is also a spirit treasure. A normal treasure could not possess such power. A trace of vigilance arose in Han Li's mind as he instinctively launched a counterattack. He formed a hand seal, condensing his spiritual sense into a concentrated mass before releasing it toward his opponent. At the same time, his opponent was even more astonished that Han Li had recovered so quickly from the thousand-soul bell's effects. Although this was not the bell's strongest ability, cultivators with lower cultivation bases would normally find it extremely difficult to endure. Gritting his teeth, he was just about to channel more magic power into the bell when a sharp pain suddenly tore through his spiritual sense, as if a spike had been driven into his mind. His spiritual sense was far inferior to Han Li's, making him highly vulnerable to the spirit-stun thorn. He let out a pained howl, clutching his head as his body curled tightly into itself. His nascent soul instantly retreated back into his body. In that moment, he lost control over the thousand-soul bell suspended in the air. A cold glint flashed in Han Li's eyes. Ignoring the giant puppet charging toward him, he pointed toward the massive golden lotus in the distance. The lotus immediately spun rapidly and descended, enveloping the black bell in a burst of golden light. Just as the lotus trapped the thousand-soul bell, the green puppet expanded to a height of 60 to 70 feet. It raised a massive fist and struck toward Han Li. A dull impact echoed as the heaven-void cauldron blocked the blow. However, it trembled violently and shrank to half its size. The puppet's strength was extraordinary. Meanwhile, eerie wails echoed from within the golden lotus. A projection of a giant bell about 10 feet in size appeared at its center, repelling the lotus's sharp petals. At the same time, strands of black threads extended from the bell, binding the lotus and slowing its rotation. Han Li frowned slightly at this sight. Just as he prepared to reinforce his treasure, a massive black wolf emerged silently behind him like a ghost and lunged forward. Its claws pierced through Han Li's gray divine essence-fused light without resistance. Although the divine essence-fused light was formidable, it was ineffective against entities beyond the 5 elements. Just as the wolf believed its ambush had succeeded, 2 golden fists shot forward toward its forelegs. With 2 loud explosions, its forelegs were shattered instantly. The wolf cried out in pain, its body thrown backward by the force of the collision. At that moment, Han Li finally turned around. His entire body shone with golden light, resembling a divine figure forged from gold. Seeing the retreating wolf, Han Li remained expressionless. His body surged forward, leaving behind a trail of after-images as he appeared above the wolf in an instant. With his magic power restored, he could once again employ the shifting smoke steps. Although this technique was slower than the thunderstorm wings, or the 9 gale transformations. It was highly effective for short-distance movement when combined with his powerful physique. The black wolf's instincts flared as it opened its mouth and fired a sphere of black light toward him. Hanli casually swept his golden palm through the air, sending the attack flying aside as if it were insignificant. At the same time, he infused magic power into his eyes. A sharp blue light burst forth, allowing him to perceive the wolf's entire internal structure in an instant. In the next moment, Han Li shifted and appeared directly before the wolf's abdomen, his expression unchanged. His hands moved like lightning, seizing the wolf's head and one hind leg. His grip was like iron clamps, immobilizing the creature completely. With a low roar, he pulled his arms apart. Given Han Li's current strength, even a metal demon beast could be torn apart, let alone a creature formed from a talisman. The wolf's head was ripped from its body in a single motion. As soon as it was decapitated, its body burst into black light and dispersed into rolling mist. However, the severed head remained active, still held firmly in Han Li's grasp. Han Li gave a faint, cold chuckle. With a flick of his other hand, a ball of silver flames appeared. The flames transformed instantly into a fire raven, which descended upon the wolf's head with a sharp cry. Amid a howl of fear, silver flames engulfed the head, reducing it to black mist in an instant. The flames then consumed the mist completely before returning to the fire raven form. The bird opened its beak and expelled a silver talisman, which Han Li swiftly caught. This was the same talisman his opponent had used earlier, though its glow had dimmed considerably, indicating that most of its power had been depleted. The fire raven circled around Han Li, releasing silver flames in an excited manner. Han Li then turned his attention to the green puppet over 100 feet away. In a flash, he appeared above it. The puppet, hindered by the heaven-void cauldron, was repeatedly striking it with brute force. Each blow pushed the cauldron back and caused it to shrink, yet it always returned to its original position and size, continuing the cycle. The puppet lacked intelligence, and its controller was still incapacitated by the spirit-stun thorn. It could only rely on brute strength. Although Han Li was unfamiliar with spirit realm puppetry, the techniques recorded in the Great Development Treasured Scriptures were among the finest in the human world. With his spirit eyes, he quickly identified the puppet's weakness. He stored the talisman, stepped forward, and vanished in a flash of golden light, reappearing behind the puppet. A series of crackling sounds came from his body as he delivered a powerful punch to a point beneath the puppet's ribs. Before contact, the force of his fist already distorted the surrounding air. A thunderous boom followed. A deep indentation appeared on the puppet's body, and it was knocked off its feet. Han Li did not relent. His fists descended repeatedly upon the same point, like a relentless storm. Within moments, a hole was punched through the puppet. He withdrew his fists and rubbed his hands together, releasing a bolt of golden lightning into the opening. Explosions erupted within the puppet. Green light flashed as its massive form rapidly shrank. In the blink of an eye, it was reduced to a foot in size and lay motionless on the ground. Although the process seemed complex, it had only taken a few breaths. At that moment, his opponent finally recovered and witnessed Han Li dismantling his puppet, golden light radiating from his body. "You've mastered the Vajra arts. You are also a top-tier body refinement cultivator," he exclaimed in disbelief. The armored cultivator outside the barrier remained silent, but his astonishment was evident. Han Li looked calmly at his opponent. "Do you wish to continue, fellow Taoist Weng?" The man's expression darkened. "Your strength exceeds my expectations, but do you truly believe you have won? Even at the cost of a century of cultivation, I will reveal the true power of the 1,000-soul bell." He roared in fury, staring at the bell entangled within the golden lotus. He began chanting. Blue light flashed above him as his nascent soul emerged once more. With a solemn expression, it formed a hand seal and raised one hand. A pillar of blue light shot toward the bell as it continued chanting. The bell trembled, absorbing the light as countless specks of spiritual energy. Seizing the moment, the man pointed at the bell. It emitted a clear chime. Violent spatial fluctuations surged within the barrier. Without warning, a thin black rift appeared in the air above. As soon as the black rift appeared, the nascent soul flicked its fingers repeatedly toward the black bell. With each flick, the man's face grew progressively paler, while the rift above expanded little by little. After many tolls of the bell, the rift had already opened into a semicircular gap. Within it, black qi and yin winds churned, obscuring anything inside from view. A harsh, unsettling cackle suddenly echoed from within. Han Li's pupils contracted. Brilliant golden light burst from his mouth as he released more divine essence-fused light to shield himself. He did not dare to be careless when facing a spirit treasure. At that moment, something unusual occurred. Thin black tendrils appeared around Han Li, drifting slowly as they circled him, yet showing no immediate intent to attack. Han Li hesitated briefly. Before he could determine the nature of this technique, the tendrils suddenly solidified into a black light formation, trapping him at its center. Not good. Alarm surged through him as his divine essence-fused light surged toward the surrounding formation in a frantic attempt to break free. But it was already too late. The formation flashed with black light. A wave of dizziness followed, and Han Li vanished from the spot along with his giant cauldron and golden lotus. In the next instant, he staggered into a strange space filled with shifting black shadows. Waves of eerie, ghostly cries echoed endlessly around him. He had been forcibly transported into the black rift. At first, Han Li faltered upon seeing this. Then, for some reason, a faint smile appeared on his face. Outside the rift, his opponent's nascent soul immediately resumed activating the black bell. Amid a series of crisp chimes, the black rift slowly closed, eventually shrinking into a thin black line over 100 feet long, suspended in the air. The nascent soul flickered and returned to its body. The man opened his eyes, a sinister smile forming on his lips. The Black Rift was an independent space created by the Thousand Soul Bell. Despite its name, it did not contain merely 1,000 souls, but nearly 10,000 yin souls. Each was the spirit of a ferocious demon beast, refined through a secret technique so that it retained almost all the strength it possessed in life. At the core of the bell was an even more formidable soul, a heavenly spirit beast at the mid-deity transformation stage. Before its death, his master had encountered it by chance in its dying moments and refined it into the main soul of the treasure. With the support of the other yin souls, the main soul's power could be amplified to roughly twice its original strength. Moreover, the bell imposed a restriction that greatly weakened all beings except yin souls, placing any cultivator drawn inside at a severe disadvantage. Under such conditions, even a late deity transformation cultivator would likely perish. The armor-clad cultivator glanced at the thin black line in the sky. A flicker of thought passed through his eyes, but he made no move. Meanwhile, Han Li's opponent sat cross-legged in mid-air, waiting for the yin souls within the bell to devour Han Li and bring the battle to its conclusion. About 5 minutes later, the black bell suddenly began to tremble violently. Rings of unstable black light radiated outward, accompanied by strange, distorted cries, creating an unsettling scene. Though the man could use the treasure, he had not established a spiritual connection with it. He had no idea what was happening. The bell suddenly released a mournful chime. Immediately afterward, the massive projection surrounding it shattered abruptly, dispersing into strands of black qi that were drawn back into the bell. Impossible. The main soul has been destroyed. The man's expression shifted to shock and horror as realization struck him. At that instant, a beam of black light pierced a point in the sky, forming a fist-sized hole. Spiritual light flashed. A streak of azure light shot out from the opening, quickly taking the shape of a humanoid figure. As a mid-deity transformation cultivator, the man sensed danger and turned toward it at once. However, the figure vanished in a flash, only to reappear behind him, leaving a trail of after-images. A thunderous roar erupted. A golden fist surged toward him. Ah! Caught off guard, the man's body shattered like glass, splitting into 7 or 8 projections that fled in different directions. Humph! You won't escape. The figure was Han Li, He gave a cold snort and unleashed a series of identical punches, each striking the back of a fleeing projection with precise accuracy. All the projections dissipated instantly. Behind the man's true body, a small silver shield appeared, intercepting the golden fist. The shield lasted only a brief moment before shattering. The golden fist struck his back without pause. At the moment of impact, a layer of azure armor suddenly manifested over his body. A loud explosion followed as the fist collided with the armor, golden and azure light intertwining violently. The armor trembled as the fist sank several inches into his body, sending him flying through the air with a pained cry. Han Li's expression remained unchanged, but he was not satisfied. Though the punch contained immense force, it felt as though it had struck something soft and yielding. Only a portion of its power had actually reached the man's body. Otherwise, the blow would have caused severe injury. The moment he was dragged into the yin soul space, Han Li had sensed his opponent's killing intent. He had no reason to hold back. Although the outcome surprised him, he did not hesitate. He appeared above his opponent in an instant. With a grasp of his hand, a golden longsword formed. Just as he was about to drive it downward, the man shouted urgently, "Stop! I concede." Han Li's lips moved slightly, but he ignored the plea and swung the sword without hesitation. With the sharpness of the azure bamboo cloudswarm sword, even the azure armor would not prevent the man from being split in two. Suddenly, spatial fluctuations arose. A wave of yellow light swept in, engulfing the man and removing him from the spot. Han Li's sword struck empty air. His expression shifted slightly as he turned. Over 200 feet away, a sphere of yellow light burst open, revealing two figures. They were the armor-clad overseer and his opponent. The overseer remained calm and expressionless. The opponent, however, was pale, his azure armor stained with blood, as he glared at Han Li with resentment. Despite the armor absorbing much of the force, he had still suffered internal injuries, even coughing up blood. The dent from the punch was clearly visible on his back. Han Li looked at him without emotion, then sheathed his sword and saluted the overseer. "Thank you for intervening, Senior. I was unable to withdraw my attack in time and nearly injured fellow Taoist Weng." Hearing this, the man nearly spat out blood again. Unable to withdraw, the attack had been aimed to kill. A subtle change appeared in the overseer's gaze, followed by a faint smile. In battle, it is easy to lose control. That is understandable. In this contest, for the Spirit Land, fellow Taoist Weng has conceded. Fellow Taoist Han is the victor and will claim the Spirit Land. Do either of you object? Han Li smiled slightly and said nothing. His opponent's expression was unwilling. He opened his mouth several times, but ultimately remained silent. Seeing no objections, the overseer nodded and extended his hand. "Hand over your dark azure pendant." Han Li immediately summoned the pendant and tossed it over. The overseer caught it and brought it toward a thumb-sized green crystal in his other hand. Upon contact, the crystal disappeared into the pendant. "The coordinates of the Spirit Land have been inscribed within your dark azure pendant. Unless you relinquish it voluntarily, you will not be able to participate in future Spirit Land battles held once every century. You may leave. The next match will begin shortly." He returned the pendant and waved them away. An opening had already appeared in the white barrier. Han Li saluted once more and departed as a streak of azure light. His opponent also left his expression dark. He paused briefly, staring in the direction Han Li had gone before turning away. Though injured, he moved swiftly. Soon he arrived above an unfamiliar region and stopped abruptly. "Why is your aura so unstable? Were you injured in the Spirit Land battle?" A cold, familiar voice sounded. Azure light flickered nearby as a miniature green worm appeared, examining him with a calm gaze. "Forgive me, Master. That man's strength was unfathomable, and I was defeated by him. If the Heavenly Guard had not intervened at the end, I would have perished beneath his sword." As soon as the green worm appeared, the man lowered his head at once, his posture respectful and restrained. "Your opponent was merely an early deity transformation cultivator. I even lent you the 1,000-soul bell. How did you still lose?" Since when have you become so incompetent? The green worm's expression darkened noticeably. Cold sweat began to form across the man's face. He replied carefully, I exerted all my strength, master, but my opponent's methods were endless. He possessed a cauldron-type spirit treasure, and he has also fully mastered the Vajra arts. A spirit treasure as well, and complete mastery of the Vajra arts. The green worm showed a trace of surprise. I speak only the truth, master. Hearing a hint of interest in the worm's tone, the man felt a slight sense of relief. The worm fell silent for a moment, its expression contemplative. Then, without warning, it extended a claw toward the man. A sphere of black light flew out from the man's body, carrying the 1,000-soul bell into the worm's grasp. The worm inspected the bell carefully for a short while. Soon after, its expression darkened once again. The man's unease deepened as he observed this. The green worm let out a cold chuckle. So he walks the path of dual cultivation. This method was once popular in ancient times, but very few pursue it now. Both body refinement and the cultivation of magic power demand immense time. At lower cultivation levels, combining the two can yield results, but in the long run, one's progress will inevitably lag behind others. Furthermore, body refinement requires suitable aptitude. To my knowledge, only a handful have reached the body integration stage through this path, including the heavenly Yuan Holy Sovereign. All of them were originally body refinement warriors who later became cultivators through spirit medicine. Otherwise, this path only ruins one's future. The man frowned slightly. He has already fully mastered the Vajra arts. Are there any further body refinement techniques he can use to continue strengthening himself? The Vajra arts represent the peak of mortal body refinement. Beyond that, one must begin cultivating certain demonic arts to further temper the body. However, those techniques are not intended for humans, and the risks are considerable. Given that he has cultivated both his magic power and his body to such a degree, it is no surprise you were defeated. However, the worm's voice grew colder. That does not explain how he escaped from my 1,000-soul bell. The main soul within the bell has been destroyed, and 60 to 70% of the remaining yin souls are also gone. I do not know how he accomplished it, the man replied quickly. I trapped him within that space, but he escaped not long after. I was unable to see what occurred inside. The worm studied him for a long moment, then withdrew its gaze with a cold snort. Humph! The 1,000-soul bell may not qualify for the chaotic myriad spirit role, but it is more than sufficient to suppress a late deity transformation cultivator. This suggests that he either possesses a treasure that counters yin souls, or he has cultivated an extremely powerful yang attribute technique. No matter. I will capture more beast souls to replenish the losses. However, we cannot abandon the treasures left behind by that individual. Relief flashed across the man's face, but hesitation soon followed. Thank you for your mercy, master. However, that plot of spirit land already belongs to him. If he establishes restrictions there, it will be difficult for us to enter and search for those treasures. That is indeed troublesome, the worm said with a low tone. But the spirit land is vast. He will not be able to establish strong restrictions across the entire area in a short time. Go to where my true body is in seclusion. I will give you something to deliver to my old friend Gongyang Gui. He possesses a heavenly 5-colored flag with exceptional concealment properties. Borrow it from him. We will enter the spirit land when the opportunity arises. In doing so, we will owe him a favor. The man did not dare respond further and could only nod repeatedly with a respectful expression. Meanwhile, Han Li had already departed Deep Heaven City and was traveling toward the plains beyond. After the battle concluded, he chose to proceed directly to his selected spirit land rather than return to the Flying Spirit Palace. With his current cultivation, Han Li's speed was remarkable. After a journey of 3 to 4 days without incident, he arrived at a vast and verdant mountain range. This was Glorious Sound Mountain. Han Li came to a stop in the air above one of its peaks. He surveyed the enormous range, which spanned hundreds of thousands of kilometers, his eyes narrowing slightly in thought. Although this was the least favorable of the 3 mountain ranges offered by the Heavenly Jade Pavilion, It was still suitable for deity transformation cultivators. The density of spiritual qi here was naturally high, far surpassing so-called sacred cultivation grounds in the human world. After observing for a time, Han Li nodded faintly and descended as a streak of azure light. Soon he had already traversed over 50,000 kilometers. Even while moving at such speed, his powerful spiritual sense extended over 5,000 kilometers, allowing him to perceive everything within that range. Along the way, he passed several shimmering restrictions, clearly marking the cave abodes of other cultivators. Hanli paid them no attention and continued onward. After nearly crossing the entire mountain range, he finally located the spirit land marked as his own on the map. The area stretched for over 10,000 kilometers, vast and uninterrupted. Aside from himself, there was not a single cultivator present. Hanli felt a measure of satisfaction. However, he did not immediately begin constructing a cave abode. Instead, he circled the boundaries indicated on the map. As he moved, he placed white formation flags at regular intervals. Each flag sank into the ground and vanished. These flags were of low grade, possessing only weak illusionary effects. Their purpose was largely symbolic, marking the land as occupied and warning others against intrusion. After completing this, Han Li began to explore the area at a measured pace. Half a day later, he discovered several small spirit mines and patches of naturally growing spirit medicines. The quality of these resources was low. It was likely that the previous owner had not considered them worth harvesting. They did not attract Han Li's interest either, though they served as a minor bonus. After inspecting the entire region, Han Li hovered high above the center of the spirit land, his expression thoughtful. He found nothing particularly unusual, yet during their battle, his opponent had gone to great lengths. Could it truly be that the land was only useful for cultivating a certain technique? Han Li dismissed the idea almost immediately. His opponent's reaction upon defeat suggested otherwise. Moreover, the spirit land was vast. Why had that man fixated on this specific plot? Even to the extent of risking his life, Han Li concluded that a more thorough search was necessary. Otherwise, a lingering sense of unease would remain, disrupting his cultivation. Having made his decision, he turned his attention to constructing a cave abode. Although the terrain was largely uniform, certain locations possessed notably denser spiritual qi. After careful consideration, Han Li selected a suitable site and flew toward it. Soon he arrived between two massive mountains where dense five-colored mist surged upward. The area resembled a vast swamp. The mist rose thousands of feet into the air. While not highly toxic, it was still inadvisable to inhale. More importantly, the mist contained unknown elements that partially suppressed his spiritual sense, preventing him from probing its depths. Only after activating his bright sight spirit eyes did Han Li discover a natural valley hidden several kilometers within, connecting the two mountains. Such a concealed location was ideal. He entered the mist and swiftly carved an opening into an unremarkable rock wall within the valley. Then, releasing his flying swords, he excavated two long tunnels extending deep into the mountains. He intended to establish two cave abodes. One would serve as a decoy. The other would be used for cultivation, as well as for raising spirit insects, spirit beasts, and spirit medicines. As for the hidden fortune abode, it was too small and unnecessary now. Once the construction was complete, Han Li transferred the spirit herbs and medicines he had brought from the human world into the garden. The gold-devouring beetles were placed within an enclosure. After years of nurturing, they had grown significantly larger and appeared increasingly ferocious, nearing full maturity. He also prepared a suitable resting place for the leopard Kirin beast, allowing it to cultivate independently. However, when he entered a certain empty beast chamber, his expression became solemn. He raised his spirit beast bracelet and waved it gently. A burst of black light emerged, and a black object, nearly 10 feet tall, appeared abruptly within the chamber. The object was round, resembling a cocoon. It emitted a faint black glow, and on its surface one could discern the image of a crimson malicious spirit. This spirit bore a single horn and 3 eyes, its appearance distinctly sinister. The cocoon had naturally formed from the weeping soul beast. During its previous evolution, it had also transformed into a similar black cocoon. The image of the malicious spirit on the cocoon matched exactly the one that had once appeared on the beast's back. Hanli stroked his chin as he observed it, a faint trace of satisfaction appearing in his eyes. During the struggle over the spirit land, when he had been drawn into the yin soul space, he immediately sensed the dense yin qi within. Shortly afterward, countless vicious souls emerged, rushing toward him under the command of a powerful ghostly monarch. Without hesitation, Han Li released the weeping soul beast. This creature possessed a remarkable ability to devour souls. As pale light streamed from its nostrils, ordinary yin souls offered no resistance and were quickly consumed. Only the ghostly monarch proved somewhat troublesome. Its body had been cultivated into a semi-solid state, allowing it to withstand the beast's light. However, Han Li activated his thunderstorm wings, appearing behind it in an instant. With a sudden strike of divine devil-bane lightning, the situation shifted. Once injured, the ghostly monarch could no longer maintain its stabilizing secret technique. In the end, while it struggled against Han Li, the weeping soul beast seized the opportunity and devoured it. After consuming numerous vicious souls, and finally the ghostly monarch, whose strength rivaled that of a deity, Transformation Cultivator, the weeping soul beast, immediately broke through its bottleneck and transformed into this black cocoon. Having witnessed such a transformation before, Han Li felt no alarm, only quiet satisfaction. He did not remain to deal with the remaining souls. Instead, he used his Law Destruction Eye to forcibly break free from the yin soul space, bringing the cocoon back into the outside world. Now he placed the cocoon inside the beast chamber. All that remained was to wait for its evolution to complete. After giving it one last measured glance, Han Li left the chamber and headed toward his medicine garden. The 9-curl spirit, ginseng dragon scale fruits, and other spiritual herbs, they were rare even within the spirit realm. He tended to them carefully. Only the profound goddess's palm was missing. Although it had once borne fruit in the human world, it had withered completely and turned to dust the moment Han Li harvested that fruit. Even the cuttings he had prepared beforehand had disintegrated. It was no longer possible to cultivate it again. Most likely all other cuttings in existence had also vanished. This was the effect of the law of exclusivity. Within a single world, only one profound goddess's palm could exist. This was not something Han Li could alter. Even deity transformation and spatial tempering cultivators were bound by the laws of heaven and earth. They could only utilize the world's origin qi, not control its laws. Only beings of a higher order, perhaps true spirits of the heavens, might possess such authority. This further demonstrated how extraordinary the profound heavenly fruit truly was. Thinking of the fruit he had obtained after several hundred years of effort, Han Li felt a restrained sense of satisfaction. Since his ascension, his magic power had been depleted, leaving him no opportunity to study it in detail. Now, with some time before returning to Deep Heaven City, he could finally examine it properly. After setting up multiple restrictions around his cave abode, Han Li entered a secret chamber and sat cross-legged. With a flick of his hand, a pristine white jade box appeared. 7 or 8 restriction talismans covered its surface, each shimmering faintly. After a brief pause, he removed the talismans and slowly opened the lid. A white shimmering object several inches long appeared before him. Han Li took it out and examined it carefully, running a finger along its surface. It was a slender oval-shaped object, smooth and slightly yellow. One end was blunt, while the other was flat, as if cleanly cut. It resembled a short rod about half a foot in length. Dark green patterns covered its surface, intricate yet unreadable. The material seemed to be a blend of metal and wood, with a slight flexibility. This was the fruit of the profound goddess's palm. According to the humanoid puppet, the fruit had originally been a spherical object emitting white light. Only after long exposure to the green liquid had it taken on this form. When Han Li had first seen it, he had found it difficult to understand. At the time, he had only examined it briefly focused, as he was on ascension. Now, after a moment's thought, he held the fruit in one hand and extended a finger from the other. A faint azure glow appeared as he tapped the surface. The light trembled as if encountering resistance, then dissipated entirely without penetrating even slightly. Han Li was not surprised. The fruit had always rejected spiritual qi. No power could be infused into it. After observing it for a while, he shifted his approach. Golden light emerged from his hand as he pressed his fingers into the fruit. The surface yielded easily, deforming like soft clay. Yet the moment he released it, the fruit returned to its original shape. Han Li then opened his mouth and released a thin golden thread. It circled the fruit once before returning. No trace was left behind. He raised a finger and released a bolt of golden lightning. The fruit repelled it, and the strike hit the chamber wall instead, causing a slight tremor. His expression remained steady as he summoned a sphere of silver flames. Without hesitation, he tossed the fruit into it. However, the flames instantly dispersed, reforming into the spirit-devouring fire raven several dozen feet away. The fire raven stared at the fruit with visible fear, emitting sharp cries. Han Li's gaze sharpened slightly. His spirit-devouring heavenly flames formed from the fusion of yin and yang fire should not fear a mere object. This reaction suggested something unusual. He proceeded to test the fruit with glacial flames, wind blades, and other methods. None left any mark. He even released several gold-devouring beetles onto it. These insects were known to consume nearly anything, yet they reacted just like the fire raven, retreating in visible panic. Even his law destruction eye had no effect. Despite his many methods, Han Li found no solution. Finally, he concentrated his power into his eyes. Blue light flared as he attempted to perceive the fruit's internal structure. To his surprise, he discovered a faint pea-sized point of white light within it. The discovery renewed his interest, but further observation revealed nothing more. For the next half-month, Han Li continued his experiments. Toward the end, he even set up small formations, attempting to refine the fruit through their power. None of these attempts succeeded. On the final night, Han Li held the fruit and gently stroked its surface. His expression remained calm. Without an extraordinary opportunity, it seemed unlikely he could unlock its secrets. Yet through this process, his mind had grown more composed and resolute. The time had not been wasted. With his return to Deep Heaven City approaching, Han Li turned his attention once more to the fruit, this time focusing on the dark green patterns he had previously ignored. A subtle change appeared in his eyes as a thought surfaced. The patterns, their structure and color reminded him of something. There existed another object with similar markings. Though not identical, the resemblance was unmistakable. Why had he not considered this before? Han Li suddenly reached into his storage bracelet, and a plain leather bag appeared in his hand. He tilted the bag, allowing a small green vial to fall neatly into his palm. It was the very same mysterious vial. Holding the vial in one hand and the profound heavenly fruit in the other, Han Li narrowed his eyes and examined them side by side. Although their shapes and weights differed, the dark green patterns on their surfaces bore a striking resemblance. A thought surfaced in his mind. Could these two objects be connected? Could the mysterious vial have been refined from a profound heavenly fruit? As he considered the vial's remarkable abilities, Han Li's heartbeat gradually quickened. The more he analyzed the idea, the more reasonable it seemed. While the material of the vial differed from that of the fruit, it was also something he could not identify. He continued to study both items in silence. After a moment, he exhaled lightly and shifted his focus to the vial. Without hesitation, he set the profound heavenly fruit on the ground and removed the vial's lid. A single drop of green liquid fell soundlessly onto the fruit. What followed caused a faint trace of satisfaction to rise within him. A flash of azure light flickered from the droplet before it vanished into the fruit. Han Li's eyes once again emitted a brilliant blue glow as he observed the internal state of the fruit. The instant the green liquid entered, it merged with the faint white speck at the fruit's core. Shortly after that weak speck expanded slightly. Han Li's expression shifted subtly, but after continued observation, no further changes occurred. The blue light in his eyes gradually faded. Lowering his head, he fell into thought. It seemed that only the green liquid from the vial could influence the profound heavenly fruit. As for the purpose of the white speck, he had no clear answer. The only way to find out was to continue feeding the fruit with the liquid. After a long period of contemplation, Han Li carefully stored both the vial and the fruit. He decided to infuse the fruit with the green liquid at regular intervals. Unbeknownst to him, at the exact moment, the green liquid merged with the white speck inside the fruit. A distant change occurred in the heavenly spirit region of the 3 human territories far beyond Deep Heaven's city. At the center of a small island, suspended tens of thousands of kilometers in the air, a translucent jade wall inscribed with golden and silver runes suddenly emitted a burst of golden light. At the same time, a clear cry echoed across the entire island. 2 green-robed cultivators seated before the wall opened their eyes simultaneously, shock evident on their faces. Golden light. Could it be that another divine spirit treasure has appeared? One exclaimed. The other remained silent, though his eyes revealed the same excitement as he stared at the jade wall. Moments later, more than a dozen streaks of light shot across the island, converging toward the jade wall. In the blink of an eye, over a dozen green-robed cultivators had gathered, all watching the golden light with focused anticipation. Soon the golden glow began to fade, causing unease among them. None dared to look away, as if fearing they might miss something crucial. Suddenly, the 3rd line of golden runes on the wall blurred and shifted downward. A new line of text appeared in its place. The expressions of the gathered cultivators froze. All of them stared at the 3rd line in disbelief. A profound heavenly spirit artifact. And it has ranked 3rd immediately upon appearing. After a long pause, an elderly cultivator muttered, "Heavens, could another true spirit tribulation be approaching the spirit realm?" The others reacted with alarm. Their faces turned pale, yet none spoke further. Soon after, the golden light completely faded, and the jade wall returned to its usual state. Above the wall floated a silver plaque over 100 feet long, inscribed with golden characters, "Chaotic Myriad Spirit Roll." Not long after, streaks of light shot out from the island, spreading toward the 3 human regions and the 7 demon territories. At the same time, within the restricted areas of various major races across the primordial world, identical changes occurred on similar jade walls. The same information was transmitted everywhere, leaving the upper echelons of all races stunned. Before long, the leaders of both human and demon races fell into turmoil. On the surface, the spirit realm appeared unchanged. Yet beneath it, unseen shifts were already underway. All races began strengthening their defenses in preparation for a possible calamity. Meanwhile, the source of these changes, Han Li himself, remained completely unaware. He was meditating within his cave abode, preparing to return to Deep Heaven City the following day. Time passed slowly. Just before dawn, Han Li suddenly opened his eyes. A faint look of satisfaction appeared on his face. He immediately stood and exited his secret chamber, heading directly toward one of the beast rooms. Standing outside, he looked in through a window and froze. A large black cocoon inside the room had been pierced by a hole the size of a head. It was now completely empty. Above it floated a cloud of deep black mist, suspended in mid-air, giving off a strange and unsettling presence. Though surprised, Han Li quickly formed a hand seal and directed it toward the door. Azure light flashed, and the restriction on the door was lifted. The door rose slowly, and he stepped inside. The black cloud, about 10 feet wide, showed no reaction to his presence. Han Li looked up at it, then formed another hand seal. Opening his mouth, he released a black bead. It was the weeping soul bead he had refined long ago. Chanting softly, he pointed toward the bead. Green light flickered across its surface, flashing irregularly. At last, the dark cloud responded. Powerful yin winds surged around it, while arcs of black lightning crackled within, accompanied by low thunder. The bead before Han Li also began to tremble, its green glow intensifying. Han Li's expression grew serious. He could sense resistance from the cloud. It was attempting to reject the pull of the weeping soul bead. After its evolution, The Weeping Soul Beast was following the same path as the six-winged frost centipede, trying to break free from his control. But Han Li had already regained his full strength. He had no intention of allowing such a thing. He immediately circulated his magic power, his 10 fingers moving rapidly as he cast a series of incantation seals of varying colors. Each seal sank into the bead. A pained cry echoed from the bead, and its green light began to dim. At that moment, a loud thunderclap burst from the cloud. A dark figure emerged from within the lightning and descended before Han Li, its crimson eyes fixed on the bead with a conflicted gaze. Han Li's heart stirred slightly. But when he clearly saw the figure's appearance, his expression became complex, surprise, confusion, and a hint of helplessness. The figure was another Han Li dressed in black robes. Aside from the color of the robes, it was identical to him in every detail. Seeing Han Li's expression, the black-robed figure mirrored it exactly as if he were looking into a reflection. After a long silence, Han Li frowned slightly. "You are the Weeping Soul Beast." The black-robed Han Li gave an awkward smile and replied in a rough voice, "Maz, I am Weeping Soul." Its speech was clumsy, like that of a newborn, though Han Li had already confirmed its identity through his connection with the bead. Hearing it speak still surprised him. "Have you taken a permanent form, or is this a transformation technique?" he asked. The black-robed figure opened its mouth but seemed unable to answer. Han Li paused, then gave a faint wry smile. The Weeping Soul Beast had only just gained intelligence. It was unreasonable to expect it to understand everything immediately. He would need to impart knowledge to it before it could respond properly. For most cultivators, this would be difficult. For Han Li, it was simple. He raised a hand and placed it atop his head. Black light flashed, and a small nascent soul, about an inch tall, emerged. This was his second nascent soul. When Han Li had regained his magic power, he had also restored this second nascent soul. However, it remained at the nascent soul stage and held limited combat value. He had originally intended to place it into a puppet to manage his cave abode. Without hesitation, the nascent soul shot forward and entered the body of the black-robed Han Li. Black lightning erupted across the figure's body, and a pained expression appeared on its face. Han Li used his second nascent soul as a medium, slowly transmitting knowledge of language and cultivation arts into the Weeping Soul Beast's spiritual sense. Fortunately, this method was only feasible through the use of the second nascent soul. Otherwise, even cultivators at the deity transformation stage would not dare to attempt such a direct infusion. After some time, the black-robed Han Li's wooden, unfocused eyes gradually became clear, as if it had absorbed a substantial amount of knowledge. Han Li withdrew his hand seal, then waved his hand lightly toward the beast. The second nascent soul immediately flew out from within the Weeping Soul Beast. However, the spiritual light it emitted had dimmed significantly, indicating considerable energy expenditure during the process. The nascent soul wavered briefly before returning to Han Li's body. "You understand what I'm asking now, correct?" Han Li asked. The Weeping Soul Beast blinked. After a pause, it replied, "I am imitating Master's form, but I can also transform into other forms." Although it had gained knowledge, the Weeping Soul Beast was still like a newborn. It did not understand deception. Moreover, it had been nurtured by Han Li for a long time. Its earlier attempt to escape had merely been an instinctive reaction. Now that it had developed intelligence, it no longer resisted him and instead regarded him with deep respect. That was why it had chosen to assume Han Li's appearance as its first transformation. Through his connection with the Weeping Soul, Bead Han Li could roughly sense its thoughts. A faint smile appeared on his face. He opened his mouth, and the Weeping Soul Beast turned into a wisp of black smoke entering his body. "Show me your transformation technique," Han Li said, his curiosity stirred. The black-robed Han Li nodded and let out a sharp cry. In an instant, it tore apart its robes as dense fur grew across its body. Its form rapidly expanded, becoming a massive black ape nearly 20 feet tall. Han Li raised an eyebrow, so its transformation technique was simply reverting to its original form. Just as a trace of disappointment arose, the giant ape suddenly snorted. Yin wind surged and arcs of black lightning coiled around it. Immediately afterward, its body expanded once more. Its fur turned crimson. 3 twisted horns emerged from its head. A bulge formed at its glabella, from which a crimson demonic eye opened. Its face elongated, and its teeth sharpened into fangs. It had become a vicious spirit, resembling the image on its back, though even more ferocious. Its height reached 60 to 70 feet, filling the entire beast chamber. More surprisingly, 3 black bone spikes had appeared on its back, each about 10 feet long. Black chi swirled around them. Hanli clearly remembered that the spirit depicted on its back did not possess such spikes. However, the deity transformation stage ghostly monarch it had devoured had been able to manifest similar bone spikes. Perhaps the two were related. As Han Li considered this, the weeping soul beast suddenly transformed into a cloud of dark mist, shrinking into a small black monkey. It leapt onto the black cocoon, tearing it apart and devouring it in large bites. Han Li paused briefly, then smiled faintly. Before long, the monkey consumed the entire cocoon. It let out a satisfied cry and jumped onto Han Li's shoulder, settling there affectionately. Han Li stroked its head, then stored it inside his spirit beast bracelet. Afterward, he went to the nearby insect chamber to inspect the gold-devouring beetles. Each beetle had grown to half a foot in length, which pleased him. He raised his hand, and a flash of azure light revealed a small green vial. He examined it quietly, running a finger along its surface. In the spirit realm, the vial had become noticeably more efficient. Previously, it required 7 days to produce a drop of liquid. Now it required only 3. More importantly, the strange phenomena accompanying the liquid's formation at night had diminished. In the past, exposure to moonlight would trigger various unusual effects. Now it emitted only a faint white glow. Unless observed closely, it would not attract attention. Even if noticed, it would likely be mistaken for an ordinary low-grade treasure. Han Li had discovered these changes after recovering his magic power. It was almost certain that the 7 moons of the spirit realm, along with the denser spiritual qi, were responsible. This was undoubtedly beneficial. Not only could the vial produce liquid more frequently, but it had also become more inconspicuous. He could even use it in public under certain circumstances without concern. After a brief consideration, Han Li stored the vial away. He also placed the gold-devouring beetles and the leopard Kirin beast into his spirit beast bracelet before leaving the cave abode. He knew others were likely watching his spirit land, so he left nothing important behind. Soon after, a streak of azure light emerged from the 5-colored mist, heading toward Deep Heaven City. Several days later, the light passed over a massive city wall and entered the city. By now, Han Li was familiar with the area. He quickly arrived at the towering azure structure. Few cultivators were entering or leaving at this time. He walked inside calmly. Following Zhao Wugui's advice, he did not immediately report his spirit land. Instead, he first went to the Heavenly Armor Hall, where he was issued a suit of dark azure armor. During his previous battle, his opponent had worn this armor. It had reduced the impact of Han Li's punch. He then located a black iron guard and asked about the 56th squad of the 3rd team before heading there. After navigating several corridors, he stopped before an ordinary gate. Above it was a sign marked C56 in ancient script. He examined the white restriction on the gate, then produced an azure jade pendant. With a wave, a streak of light dispelled the restriction. He pushed the gate open and entered. Inside was a spacious hall with tables and chairs. 2 passageways extended from either side. 2 cultivators in black armor sat nearby, speaking quietly. They turned in surprise upon seeing him. Han Li glanced at them and raised his eyebrows slightly. One of them was Zhuo Chong, the green-eyed cultivator who had previously escorted him. Recognition flashed across Zhuo Chong's face. He quickly stood and bowed. "Greetings, Senior Han. Are you our new squad leader?" "Correct. I've been assigned to lead the 56th squad. I will rely on your cooperation," Han Li said calmly, tossing the jade pendant. Zhuo Chong caught it, inspected it carefully, and returned it with increased respect. Zhuo Chong of the 56th Squad greets the squad leader. The other man, a thin cultivator in his 30s, also stood. Dongguo Feng greets the squad leader. Han Li waved off the formalities. Are you the only ones here? Taoist priest Ma and fairy Shu are absent. The others are cultivating in the silent chamber. We are on patrol duty. Should I inform everyone of your arrival? Zhuo Chong asked. There is no need. I've just arrived and am not yet familiar with the city. Brief me on the squad, Han Li replied. Yes, Senior Zhuo Chong said. He proceeded to introduce each member and explain their patrol duties. While Han Li listened, a streak of golden light suddenly shot into the hall heading toward them. Zhuo Chong and Dongguo Feng exchanged glances but did not act. Han Li casually reached out and caught it. It was a small golden sword with a red jade slip attached. Before he could examine it, the hall door opened. A refined voice sounded. Ha ha, a messenger's sword from above. It seems I arrived just in time. You are... A Taoist priest entered, then stopped upon seeing Han Li. Brother Ma, this is Senior Han, our new squad leader, Zhuo Chong said quickly. Senior Han, this junior greets Senior Han, the Taoist priest said, bowing with surprise. No need for formalities. You've reached the peak of the late nascent soul stage. You are only one step from the deity transformation stage. That is worth acknowledging, Han Li said after assessing him, a faint smile appearing. You possess keen insight, Senior Han. Unfortunately, I have remained at this cultivation level for several hundred years. I am uncertain whether I will be able to take that final step before my lifespan is exhausted. The Taoist priest said with a wry smile. Han Li returned a faint smile but offered no reply. He removed the red jade slip from the small golden sword and examined its contents with his spiritual sense. The other three cultivators stood quietly to the side waiting. After a short while, Han Li withdrew his spiritual sense and calmly spoke the name of a location. Floating Dawn Swamp. What? How could it be that place? Zhuo Chong blurted out. Dongguo Feng and the Taoist priest were equally shocked. Han Li frowned slightly. Why? Is there something wrong with that place? That would be putting it lightly. That area is often frequented by foreign races. Every year, many of our fellow Taoists perish there. It is an extremely dangerous region, Zhuo Chong replied in a grave tone, and we will be the only squad assigned to patrol it. Han Li asked, a trace of surprise appearing on his face. That is unlikely. The Floating Dawn Swamp is vast. Even flying non-stop, it would take half a month to circle it once. Normally 4 or 5 squads patrol the area simultaneously. Taoist priest Ma explained. If we are not alone, then there is no need for concern. We simply need to proceed with greater caution, Han Li said calmly. Senior Han, you may not know this, but 2 years ago, leader Xuan Guang of the 12th Squad was attacked by members of the Shadow Tribe in the Floating Dawn Swamp. He died on the spot, along with 2 companions. At that time, Senior Xuan Guang had already reached mid-deity transformation. Dongguo Feng said, his expression uneasy. Is that so? Han Li's expression shifted slightly. At that moment, footsteps sounded from the corridors on both sides of the hall as several more people emerged. There were 6 of them, 5 men and 1 woman. Among them were 2 elderly men, a middle-aged couple, a youth who appeared to be in his late teens, and a burly man with a bold demeanor. They were clearly squad members who had been cultivating in seclusion and had come out after sensing the arrival of the messenger sword. Upon seeing Han Li, they were all somewhat surprised. After Zhuo Chong made introductions, they immediately bowed respectfully. Han Li responded with equal courtesy. As his spiritual sense swept over them, his gaze lingered briefly on the young man surnamed Ying. This youth was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, the same as Taoist priest Ma and Zhuo Chong. Unexpectedly, the 2 with the lowest cultivation levels were the elderly men. Once they learned that their assignment was to patrol the Floating Dawn Swamp, concern appeared on all of their faces. Enough. The orders from above cannot be changed. We must simply exercise greater caution in the coming years. We depart tomorrow. Make your preparations, Han Li instructed, before turning and walking into one of the corridors. He entered a silent cultivation chamber and settled down. His composed attitude only increased the unease of the others. Eventually, all eyes turned to Zhuo Chong. The young man asked Brother Zhuo, "Did you explain the dangers of the floating dawn swamp to Senior Hani?" "I did, but it seems he did not take it too seriously." Zhuo Chong replied with a quiet sigh, "We have no choice. The order came from the Council of Elders. What can we do? Refuse it?" The woman said with resignation, "We cannot refuse, but we should at least ensure Senior Han understands the risks, so he remains cautious. If we encounter powerful foreign beings, we must be prepared." Taoist priest Ma said, stroking his beard. Zhuo Chong fell silent for a moment, then said, "There is no need for excessive worry. The floating dawn swamp is dangerous, but truly powerful foreign beings are rare. Moreover, because of the danger, the rewards are substantial, and we will be granted a long rest afterward. As long as we survive these few years, we will likely be assigned safer areas." You all heard Senior Han return and prepare. With nothing further to add, the group dispersed, the atmosphere heavy. Meanwhile, Han Li sat cross-legged within the chamber. A faint golden light shimmered across his body. He appeared to be meditating deeply, yet golden halos flickered irregularly behind his head, forming a peculiar sight. A day passed quickly. When Han Li opened his eyes and stepped out, Zhuo Chong and the others were already waiting. They immediately stood and saluted. Han Li waved his hand, then turned his gaze toward a female cultivator. She appeared to be in her 20s, with clear, almost translucent skin. Her eyes shone like stars. When Han Li looked at her, a faint sense of familiarity arose, as though he had seen her before. A trace of surprise flickered in his eyes. "Senior Han, this is Fairy Shu. She is a direct descendant of an ascended cultivator," Taoist priest Ma introduced with a smile. Han Li's thoughts stirred slightly, but his expression remained calm as he nodded. The woman appeared cold and reserved. She gave a brief greeting, then said nothing more. "If everyone is present, we will depart." Han Li wasted no time. He led the group out of the hall toward a nearby teleportation stone chamber. Another group of cultivators guarded the chamber. Inside stood a golden ark, though it was unnecessary for such a short distance teleportation. After presenting his identity badge for inspection, the squad divided into smaller groups of 3 or 4 and entered the formation in batches. 3 flashes of white light followed. All 11 members of the squad were transported out of Deep Heaven City and arrived in an unfamiliar location. After the dizziness subsided, Han Li observed his surroundings, his brows slightly furrowed. They stood within a small stone chamber. Beneath their feet was a one-way teleportation formation. The walls were covered in flickering runes, sealed under restrictions. Taoist priest Ma and the others who had arrived earlier were waiting outside. Han Li stepped out calmly and walked to the door. He took out his azure jade pendant and waved it. A burst of azure light shot forth. The runes on the door flickered before it slowly opened, revealing an upward passage about 10 feet wide. Han Li immediately transformed into a streak of azure light and flew upward. The others quickly followed. Once the last person exited, spiritual light flashed, and the door sealed shut again. Han Li emerged above a small mountain and hovered in the air, surveying the surroundings. They were in a desolate mountain range. About 50 kilometers behind them, a vast expanse of white light shimmered. Beyond it stood a massive city wall, its runes emitting powerful spiritual light even at this distance. Han Li studied the wall for a long moment. He knew that the side of Deep Heaven City, facing the primordial world, had no gate. Entry from this direction was only possible through teleportation formations. This design prevented foreign races from infiltrating the city. However, Han Li did not dwell on this. He turned his gaze elsewhere. In that direction lay a series of lush mountains of varying sizes. The scenery was peaceful, almost deceptively so, making it difficult to believe it belonged to the primordial world. According to the map, the floating dawn swamp lay about 5,000 kilometers ahead. Due to its terrain's spiritual sense was severely restricted there, making it an ideal location for foreign spies to observe Deep Heaven City. Thus, patrols were necessary. However, those spies were powerful and skilled in concealment. Many human cultivators had fallen there. For this reason, it was considered one of the most dangerous patrol assignments. Now that Han Li had been assigned here, he would have to proceed with caution. With that thought, he glanced at the others and said, "Let's go." The 11 cultivators flew forward as streaks of light. A distance of 5,000 kilometers was not difficult for nascent soul cultivators. Before long, Han Li saw their destination. A band of turbulent green light appeared ahead. As they drew closer, it became clear that it was not light, but a vast expanse of murky mist. Han Li slowed and flipped his hand, producing a formation plate. He tapped it lightly. Red light spread across its surface. The others did the same. These were foreign spirit plates issued for patrol missions. They could detect foreign beings within a certain range. Though each plate could only detect in one direction together, they covered multiple directions effectively. Holding the plates, the group reduced their speed and cautiously entered the mist. Soon all traces of them vanished.